Okay, so we're gonna take a look at this motor here that was on the bandsaw. It's an older GE half horse. It's almost the same motor that's on my drill press actually, and it works fine. And we have no play in the shaft really, and it's quiet. These oil caps tell me that there's not bearings in here, but it's probably a piece of cast iron with a wick around it. And basically I just want to make sure that the contacts in there look good and kind of clean up these bell housings a little bit, just because they have, 40 years of mung on there. So before we even start anything, what we're going to do is take a little punch. A little automatic punch here, and what we're going to do is mark the housing and mark the bell, just so when we put this back together again, she lines up. Okay, now you should be able to just take this right off and grab a wrench. My eyeballs are failing me. Ooh, yeah, good thing I took this apart. I'll show you why. Jesus. That's a very old capacitor. It's not even plastic, it's paper. But what I'm seeing in here, let me get my soldering iron and let me pull this off. And then I'll show you what I'm looking at inside there that I don't particularly like. Okay, I got the capacitor removed, and now what we're looking at is a little bit of uglies back here, which is not surprising given the age of the motor. And looks like it's pretty fixable, judging by what I'm seeing here. So let me see if I can get this shaft out. get that shaft out. This is the start contact, but you can't see because I'm too far zoomed in. Okay, so what I'm looking at right here is this. Right here. You can see the insulation's all deteriorated. That is probably chewed. And that looks like the only one in this is just going from my starting switch here, my centrifugal switch, to my capacitor. So that's very easily replaceable. Everything else here, although old, looks pretty intact. Got a little bit of a break right here that you can see that yellow right there. Right here. And that's not all the way through. That's just like the outer edge. And a little bit right here, which really isn't that bad. Now I've had good luck with just taking some of that liquid electrical tape and just sealing those up. So now you can see here, when we pull this out, this bell here, there is no bearing in there. What there is, and I'll zoom in for you, let's see if we can get a good picture. So there's, you can see the GE mark on the end cap there. And what there is a cast iron bushing with, it's pretty gummed up, but you can see a hole right there. That is a wick. So you oil it up, that wick holds the oil, and that's what lubricates your shaft. It's a pretty robust system, and we'll clean all that out with some brake clean and make sure that gets all out, and then we can kind of repaint this bell end here. And see if we can get this. Actually, you know what? Judging by the goop that's in there, somebody put grease in this at some point. Here's the rotor, and here's the spring and weights for that switch, which would fly out once the motor gets up to speed, disengaging this contact here. And we're a little goopy in there too, so yeah, we'll clean up all these felts. What I've done in the past, what works good help with those, is to soak it in some turpentine. That loosens up all the grease, or even acetone will probably work too. Just loosen up any grease that somebody kind of shoved in there, and I'll get the wicks flowing again and working fine. You can also probably replace them, but I don't want to have to pull this whole thing apart. There's a spring in there I can see. We'll see if we have to do any of that. I don't think I will. But we'll get this off here, and we'll go clean up both end bells. And we'll clean the motor and repair some of these wires, and we'll replace this one here. Cheaper than a new motor. And if it ever dies, I have other motors hanging out in my shed, but if we can use the original, why not? Okay, so I basically just scraped all the goo off of the stator here and cleaned the mount as best I could. You're never going to be able to get it perfectly clean, but we can just mask these ends off and spray paint it. But what I want to do too is I want to clean the contacts here. So this is just a piece of 400 grit sandpaper, and if you pinch it in between the two contacts, pull it through, you can see what it gets off of there, and do it on both sides. You can kind of see some of this. And all we're trying to do is just make sure we have a good contact point there. And now we're nice and clean. So what we're going to do is get some brake cleaner. I'm going to spray down those contacts, make sure there's nothing on there. We'll mask these ends off. We'll spray paint that, and then we'll replace this wire and give these other ones here a little bit of a reinforcement. Okay, excuse the background noise. We got our sonic cleaner and a dryer going, but what we're going to do is remove this wire here, and we're going to replace it with this. And this is just a regular piece of THWN 12 gauge, because that's pretty much what I had. You go thinner than that, you could probably do 14 and be perfectly fine, but like I said, this is what I have. This is what I carry in my van. So we're just going to pull this one off and put this one on. So hopefully it should be hot enough here. Should technically have a larger tip on here, but this should work. Alright, we are off. Let's clean the tip here a little bit. We got some schmutz on there. Alrighty, that is now attached. And that's going nowhere. So now we can cut this to length and solder it to the capacitor. Okay, so cut that wire a little bit longer than the original one. Now we can put this back together. Let me grab the end bells. Ready? Here are the end bells. What we're going to do first is, here is the weights for that relay. I'm going to screw this back in place. That's just to make sure that everything moves free. Okay, now we're going to get this in place, and what we need to do is we need to screw this. It has to go over the shaft, and then needs to screw into, should be 3 holes I thought. Oh, that's because this goes here. So 1, 2, 3 holes that needs to screw to. Fiber washer I was just looking for the past 10 minutes, right in front of my face. Okay, so we got this temporarily wired at the moment, and we're just going to put some oil in these bearings. I don't need a lot, just enough to soak up those wicks. Okay, make sure I got a little switch there. This is all just temporary wiring. We're just going to make sure it doesn't blow up in our face. Well, you'll know work. Bad switch. Ha ha ha. there she is. And that hiss that you just heard was that switch popping back into place. So, we got a motor. Okay, just took a second to tweak in the bell housings, and now we are silent and running. So we're good to go.